And but I was able to finally buttonhole the guy, and I said to him, you know, I said, I want the UUA to reopen and re-examine my complaints against Reverend Ray Drennan and Reverend Victoria Weinstein. I want you to reassess that, and you know, basically from where I'm coming from, I want you to overturn that stuff and recognize that bad decisions were made. His response to me was, "We're not reopening something that's years and years and years old." That's pretty well an exact quote. Certainly the years and years and years old bit is like word for word. So he basically said, forget it, you know, we're not even going to look at this stuff, you know. This was actually on the first day, I believe. And I actually made that point in the meeting. I brought it up. I informed the board that I'd had this discussion with Peter Morales about reopening, you know, my complaints to, you know, re-examine them. To use your term, an audit. No, I think like you're ideally placed to deal with a situation. You know, you've got the experience, you know what it's all about, and so I'm thinking, hey, finally, after like 20 years of insanity, we might actually get somewhere. And I don't use that term insanity lightly. You know, I have been basically a lot of Unitarians are saying I'm like totally psychotic, you know, mentally ill, suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, fine, you know, you can say that and whatever, you know, but in terms of certain things that the UUA has done, the word insanity actually works. Not in the sense of like mental illness, but in the sense of like just crazy, stupid, you know, like what on earth do you think you're doing here, you know? So that's why I'm using it in that sense. Anyhow, I think oh yeah, so that's it. So that's the thing is, you know, he just refused to deal with it. You know, it's like, forget it, it's not happening. And as I said, when I spoke, you know, when I wanted to speak in terms of the MSC report, and Jeannie initially tried to shut the whole thing down, and there's really little question in my mind that the reason she wanted to do that is because she didn't want me saying anything after the MSC report. You know, sure, you know, maybe they were line schedule and so on and so forth, but it was pretty clear from what was going on that she didn't really want me to say anything after the MSC report. And so her solution was to just shut down all discussion. You know, it's not the first time something like that's happened, I'm sure you're aware. Anyway, what I'm getting at is she did say, you know, she said there will be an opportunity to follow up after this meeting via email and so on. And it never happened. Like I said, when I emailed her personally, in terms of her UUA, you know, email, and the board, again, I didn't get so much as an acknowledgement of receipt. They didn't even say so much as we got these emails. So that's it. And then, you know, now we have 3 years after that, Peter Morales' administration is reopening something that's years and years old. Years and years and years old is the exact term. You know, it's like they're reopening it, but not in the sense of like trying to like correct their mistakes, but no, to intimidate me into silence, with which can be properly described as Lance Armstrong style legal bullying. You know, Lance Armstrong, when people said he was doping, you know, they would get harshly worded cease and desist demand letters saying shut up or else. You know, well, I got that kind of, you know, cease and desist demand, like, you know, delete these blog posts or do govern yourself accordingly. You know, it's like, well, actually, the do govern yourself accordingly is in terms of deleting blog posts that they are claiming to be, you know, threatening and defamatory conduct, and sexual harassment, and even so far as blasphemous libel. And again, the blasphemous libel thing, again, I will use the word insanity. I used it with Reverend Gail Seavey, and she totally agreed. And again, not in the sense of mental illness, in the sense of like, just nuts, you know? Because I mean, if you know anything about, keep going, yeah, I get that. Oh, just like David Cameron got a few things the other day. I liked how he said, I get that. Exactly, and exactly, and you know, and as far as I'm concerned, so does UUA, but they just don't get it, kind of thing. You know, they don't want to get it. But I'm glad you get it, because like I said, honestly, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah, right, right, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I'm glad you understand that. Both, and right now the way it stands, sorry, you know, right now the way it stands is that clergy do have an appeal process, but I believe it's only if they're actually defellowshipped. So maybe if they're not defellowshipped, yeah. But anyway, you do recognize the need for an appeal process, so that's very good. Now, can I just continue? Sorry, I'll happily let you say what you're doing. That appeals process needs to be retroactive, so that I and other people can appeal bad decisions that happened 2 or 3 years ago, or even 15 or 20 years ago. Now I understand that can open a huge can of worms. Well, actually, this is another point that's related to this. I understand that a lot of people that made clergy misconduct complaints in the past were they were basically coerced or cajoled into signing confidentiality agreements. So basically, they signed letters saying that, you know, we're not going to speak about this. I believe that in terms of the healing process for everyone, all clergy misconduct victims, I believe the UUA needs to say that those people who signed confidentiality agreements with the UUA that wish to speak up can do so. Now, the UUA has to waive those confidentiality agreements if the person wants. You know, I'm sure a lot of people won't want to say anything, you know, but I think those that do want to speak freely and openly and, you know, about what happened, I think they need to be allowed to do so. So I think that's another process thing. Anyway, I'm glad actually, you know, in terms of process, I'm more than happy to discuss things with you. But you know, like I said, so far, you know, we're basically on the same wavelength. I will tell you, by the way, that how much discussion have you had with Gail Seavey? Oh, okay. Right. So you've only had one discussion with her? Okay. Well, put it this way. Gail, Seavey, and I see very, literally almost eye to eye on everything. Like, we're almost like 100% in agreement on everything. You know, like, and what I say, she agrees with, and what she says, I agree with. There's almost no disagreement between her position on things and mine. You know, her, you know, thing, it's centered mainly on the sexual misconduct, and I think this is a problem. You know, there's so much emphasis on the sexual misconduct that the non-sexual stuff involving congregants just gets all but totally ignored. And that shouldn't happen. The only non-sexual clergy misconduct that is addressed to my knowledge is things like a Unitarian Universalist minister plagiarizing the sermons of his colleagues. That has been dealt with, and quite harshly in my opinion. And also things like embezzlement and so on and so forth. You know, but that's the kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, right. Yeah, not totally unique. I think they're comparable to with a psychologist or a doctor, or, yeah. No, I would say not. Yeah, no, there's some very significant differences. Anyhow, having said what I've said, and I think I interrupted you once or twice, and you know, your approach, you wanted to listen compassionately. Well, I guess you're listening compassionately to this, but you know, I haven't gone into any detail in terms of what happened with Drennan, which is actually the most serious thing in my opinion. And this is part of, you know, this is what, if you're wondering, like, why did this guy hang in there for like almost 20 years? It's for this reason. Reverend Ray Drennan, my complaint against him was because he labeled an interreligious event that I'd organized as a cult, and he did mean it in the worst sense of the word, because I challenged him on that. I said, well, what do you mean by cult? And he responded by saying, I mean a manipulative and secretive religious group. And I might add that this was at a time when the Solar Temple murder-suicide was in the news. So he meant cult in the worst sense of the word, you know, in his attack on the interreligious event that I'd organized and successfully celebrated. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but I'm claiming a fairly profound religious experience, a revelatory type religious experience. I heard you've had a near-death experience, maybe not a near-death experience, but you faced death according, you know, to the cancer thing. In some ways, there's some overlap there. I am claiming a very, very profound revelatory experience, and this is where the mental illness stuff comes in. I think I've dealt with this about as rationally as anyone claiming that kind of experience ever has. But Drennan, because he's one of these, you know, hard-nosed, what I call fundamentalist atheists, the kind that think you're an idiot if you believe in God, he laced into me. This is all during one meeting, personal meeting with him. I was trying to explain my religious experience to him, and he cut in and he said, "You mean your psychotic experience?" And then he aggressively and angrily demanded that I seek professional help. That was his exact words, you know, in quotation marks. He's basically saying I'm seriously mentally ill, psychotic, you know, even suggesting that I'm dangerous, you know, potentially, you know, because people tend to mix up psychotic with psychopath. And those are the two main worst things. He also wrote off my religious beliefs as being nothing but silliness and fantasy, which is probably the least serious thing he did. And this was basically accepted by the UUA. But what I'm getting is, you know, that is, you know, the kind of thing where maybe somebody does want to listen in depth and compassionately. And that's going to bring us back actually to Reverend Jim Key. She was the only board member during that meeting who came up to me during the meeting and tried to speak with me. And, well, other than Jean was actually, you know, she was quite, how can I put it, personable, basically trying to be all nice, you know, until she shut me down at the MFC thing and never responded to my emails, but she was trying to put on a good image. But Jean Key asked me to, she said, you know, what caused this, what happened, you know, what brought you, you know, and I told her what I just told you, the Drennan thing, you know, the creation day was a cult, I'm psychotic, and before I could even finish, before I could even go on to the rest of it, she said, can I say something? And I said, well, yes, you know, and she said, I'm sorry, what happened should not have happened. That's an exact quote. I'm sorry, what happened should not have happened. And she was absolutely right. And then I told her, I said, well, I appreciate, you know, I thank you for your individual expression of regret, and if you want to call it an apology, but you're not the person responsible. You're not the UUA. I need the UUA to say this. You know, I need the UUA to say, you know, what happened should not have happened, and we're sorry. But of course, nothing ever came of it. You know, I never got any further, you know, I believe the reason why I have not been responded to by, you know, anyone at the UUA other than that nice cease and desist demand letter I received, is because they've been advised by UUA attorneys not to say anything to me. Which is again what brought me back to my concerns about you. You know, right now, you know, you are speaking with me, and Gail and Annabelle, and basically we're the only people that know about this. I did tell my brother that I'm speaking with a high-level person. I didn't say who, but I just said I'm in communication with a high-level UUA person, so I'm hopeful that maybe we'll be able to resolve this finally. That's the only, and I told him, like, don't tell anyone else, like, nobody. That's just between you and me, just so you know. And that's the other thing is sorry? I didn't hear what you said. Okay, I presume it had to do with my letting my brother know that I'm speaking with someone. But like I said, I didn't name you, so I presume it falls within our confidentiality. Like, I don't think you're too annoyed that yeah. Right. Well, I'm not demanding any myself. The only reason that it's for you. It's not for me. And again, this is exactly what I'm talking about right now. I am sure that if the UUA's attorneys knew that you were talking to me right now, they'd be going, oh, fuck. They'd be going, oh, shit. Excuse me for the four-letter words there, you know, but I'm just, you know, making a point. You know, I can't imagine that the UUA attorneys, and so what I'm saying is I understand our need for confidentiality up to a point, so that things can go reasonably well, and I fully intend to keep that. So I'd actually be interested in knowing, my preference would be total openness and transparency between you and me as soon as possible. You know, and in terms of you, exactly. No, I understand that. That's what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is I do not require confidentiality. I understand that you do. I understand the reasons why, because of the potential opposition, the potential for your wish to like try and clean up this mess to be sabotaged by people who don't want to clean up the mess. You know, so that I understand. I figured as much. Yeah. 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 Well, you're aware of the issues. You know, it's clear from your work experience and everything. You know that issue. So that's clear. So what I just want to make it very, very clear to you that the minute you decide you don't need confidentiality anymore, I don't either. Because I don't need it right now. I don't need it right now. So I'm definitely, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I'm glad you brought up the word stonewalling there. And yeah, so I think we understand each other very, very well, and I think that's a very good thing. And I think you've probably by now determined that I'm not quite the psychotic, crazy man that a bunch of people are trying to make me out to be. Speaking of which, have you seen the Rob and Edgar Sucks blog? Not recently, but you have seen it. Yeah, yeah. Well, not only stronger language, but oh, and speaking of strong language, but no, actually some of the stuff on there is just totally false. There were some things put up where they said, oh, these are comments that we received, and we're putting them up as a blog post, and they were supposedly from people who knew me personally. And I'm looking at this stuff and I'm going, that is not someone who knows me, because they got some things like totally wrong, and anyone who does know me knows it's wrong. So either this is somebody who did comment and made up stuff, or it's the blog people themselves who just made a complete fabrication. So what I'm getting at is, you know, I'm accused of slandering and libeling the UUA, the Unitarian Church of Montreal, Unitarian Universalist Ministers, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think so. I'm very, very, very careful about telling the truth and having evidence to back it up. What's on the Rob and Edgar Sucks blog basically is, some of it, not all of it obviously, but some of it is definitely oh, you just saw the title, okay. By the way, and this is actually, this you're going to laugh actually. I'm expecting you will laugh. But I didn't mention the other minister that is accusing me of sexual harassment. I'm trying to remember her name now. Mason something or other. Honestly, right now I just got one of those little mind blocks. The other minister that's accusing me of sexual harassment is Reverend Mason something or other. What happened with her is that she, but you know, I've moved on to Twitter. Have you seen my Twitter stuff? Oh boy. Okay, I'll send you some links after, and I presume we're going to have to wind this up relatively soon. Okay, yeah, so we'll wind this up. I'll just let you know, and it might even be a bit of a humorous note. You know, there's the Rob and Edgar Sucks blog, which began in December 2010, if I remember correctly, or it might have been 2009. In terms of the word sucks, there was another Unitarian minister, Lexington, Kentucky, again, the name, you know, I know the name, but it's escaping me right now. Anyway, this minister, yeah, Reverend Cynthia P. Kane, she put up a blog post during the election campaign for Obama where she laced into Republicans and Sarah Palin and Mitt Romney, but basically Republicans. The title of her blog post was, "Oh my God," you know, OMG, mean people really do suck. And then in the text of the blog post, it started out, "And I saw a whole bunch of really mean people last night." And she was talking about watching the Republican National Convention, you know. She put Republicans. You know, so that's now two uses of the word suck by Unitarians before I ever used the term. And I used it specifically because one of my tactics is to throw stuff that Unitarians say back at them and wait for them to squawk. Well, did I ever get a squawk? Because what happened with this minister is she was on Twitter and she was going and tweeting about hospitality and how, you know, we really have to, you know, Unitarian Universalists have to be hospitable and so on and so forth. And I tweeted back to her, and actually what I tweeted back to her I thought was like basically civil, and I just pointed out, I can't even remember exactly what, but I basically pointed out that you know, Unitarians weren't always all that hospitable kind of thing, you know. And the next thing you know, she tweets out on Twitter, you know, "Rob and Edgar is blocked." You know, and she not only blocked me, but she publicly announced that she was blocking me. And this was as a result of some fairly innocuous comments that I made, basically calling, you know, just giving a little poke, calling into question, you know, the hospitality of Unitarian Universalists. So this was a clear case of someone, you know, saying we need to be, you know, hospitable, and in almost the same breath, being very inhospitable. You know? And so I used the term sucks and blows at the same time to describe her hypocrisy. So I am being accused of sexual harassment of this minister because I used the term sucks and blows at the same time to describe her, you know, basically, yeah. So anyhow, yeah, so we'll wind up on that. So actually, I'll send you links. When I got that, yeah, when I got that email, literally the day I got it, or the day after I got it, I posted to the Emerson Avenger blog the blasphemous libel portion of it, because this was like totally out to lunch. You know, there was like not even a scrap of any kind of truth to it. other than the fact that I had indeed blogged about a couple of Unitarian Universalist rapists, one of whom was a pedophile. But there was no truth to my blog post being unfounded, and there was no truth to it amounting to blasphemy. Anyway, I put that up right away. It was just total, you know the word. That was the day or day after I received it. But I wasn't sure about the legality of putting up, you know, legal documents online. So I checked into it, and you know, I asked around, and I got legal advice and you know information and so on. The lawyers that I spoke with, the legal advice people, basically said there's no rule against it, but we don't advise it. Typical, you know, lawyer advice. Oh, thank you. There's no rule against it. I put up color photographs of the 2 pages of the actual letter. So that the letter I received, the actual paper document with the bailiff stamp, is available on the Emerson Avenger blog. I put it up about a month after I got it. So following this conversation, which we will wind up, I'll send you some links to pertinent stuff, and I guess we'll take it from there. But that's fine, yeah. And it's been good talking to you, and I really, I very much appreciate the fact that you have the, you know, I don't know what word to use. I won't use courage, because I think you probably don't even believe you're being courageous, right? Exactly. so you know, you're just doing what needs to be done, kind of thing. You know, you're doing your job, as most heroes say. I'm just doing my job. You know. So anyway, you know where I'm coming from. But I nonetheless deeply appreciate the fact that you're doing what you said you would do. You are very much in my good books, and hopefully we can work this out. I mean, obviously there's other things to talk about and getting down to nitty-gritty and other issues and so on. I'm not concerned only with my case, but I thought you should know what it is because things are happening. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, talk to other people. I'll send you some emails filling you in on stuff, you know, and you can take it from there. So but anyway, thank you very, very much. And if there's anything you want to say to me before you go, feel free to say it. Right. Okay. Well, I'll be in touch. I don't expect so, but hopefully we can start. Yeah. Okay. Talk to you later. Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. Well, that was UUA Moderator Jim Key on the phone with me, and we had a very good discussion, as I expected we would. And that will do for now. We're just coming up almost a half an hour. I believe we've probably spoken for almost an hour and a half because if I remember correctly, 2 other half-hour things where it actually cut off at the end because I didn't quite get to it in time are over. So yeah, we've spoken with Jim for an hour and a half, and really couldn't have gone much better, could it? And on that note, that's the end of this video. Keeping track of what I said. I'm taking notes of what Jim said. He actually didn't say a whole lot, but what he did say was basically in agreement with me anyway. So you can get a pretty good idea of what Jim said in terms of what I said, which was the whole idea here. I'm not recording his words. I'm not recording his conversation, but from what I said, there should be a pretty good idea of what he said, and then also I have the notes of some of the more important things he said. That's it.